been spending a lot of time these days rereading passages of Scripture that have been really familiar to me, passages that I've read hundreds of times before. Why? Because I've got nothing but time on my hands these days, and this gives us an incredible opportunity to refamiliarize ourselves with passages that we've read lots of times before, maybe to read them in some new ways. One of those passages these days has been Genesis 1. We read words like this in the very beginning words of Scripture. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the earth was formless and void. And that sounds really peaceful and really tranquil. But actually, in Hebrew, those words carry a connotation that's far more chaotic. In Hebrew, there is this kind of understanding that the formlessness and the voidness of this creation is this kind of churning chaos that would take something that is good and right and beautiful and ordered and reduce it back to its elemental parts, to kind of take it apart and reduce it to chaos. But of course, the Scripture does not end there. The words keep on coming, and it's something like this, that even in the formlessness and the voidness of this creation, there was a wind from God that was hovering over the surface of the deep. Some translations say the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. I want to take a minute to reflect on that. What does it mean for the Spirit of God to be hovering over the midst of a really chaotic situation? A chaotic situation that would threaten to take good things and rip them apart. Friends, you and I are walking through a chaotic season of our world's history. I had a friend say it to me this morning that we are living in the next chapter of our kids' history books. So as I talk to my children these days, I think this is true, that their kids are going to read a chapter in their history books about what we are living through right now. And these are chaotic waters. As a matter of fact, we are dealing with a disease that is threatening to take the good order of society, the good order of creation, and reduce it down to its elemental parts. But here's some good news. The Spirit of God is hovering over the waters of chaos. And as that Spirit hovers, there's an activity that begins to unfold there. This Spirit begins to move over the waters, and it begins to part the waters and the land. It begins to part the light and the dark, the day and the night. And life begins to flourish. I love that about Genesis 1. If you want to keep reading through the rest of that passage, the rest of that chapter has this movement about it where the Spirit begins to blow and the Word begins to speak. And where there was chaos, it now begins to be established in order so that things can grow and live and flourish. And I am convinced that the Spirit of God is hovering over the waters of chaos that we are living in right now. The tohu bohu, the words in Hebrew that we use for formless and void, those chaotic waters that would threaten to pull us down and to fragment us and to rip us apart and to destroy life, are the same waters that the Spirit of God is hovering over, breathing into, and causing good order to flourish. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like for every single one of us, but these days I am really encouraged to think about the kind of order for flourishing that God is breathing in maybe my life. See, there is a kind of chaos that I think I'd already been living in, and that is filling up every available moment of my time. I was running ragged, and I think there's a possibility that you and I are facing these days to be able to allow the Spirit to guide us into a season of growth and renewal and flourishing where we have to faithfully and prayerfully consider what it is that we're going to add back in when life returns to whatever normal is going to look like after this. See, I think that as painful as this season is, the Spirit is still hovering over the waters and birthing something new. And so I hope you lean into that. As chaotic as this is, and as strange as this is, and as painful as this is not a new thing for God. God's Spirit has always been hovering over chaotic situations. Maybe we could look for the ways that water and land are beginning to part, that light and dark are beginning to distinguish from one another, where life, a new kind of life that none of us could have expected, begins to percolate. Maybe you can see that today. My charge to you, my challenge, is to maybe spend some time prayerfully asking God to show you where those new places of life are beginning to grow and flourish. That maybe we could begin to release our grasp on the things that we'd held on to so tightly because we have no choice at this point. And that could actually be the way that the Spirit of God is hovering over these waters of chaos and allowing a new kind of life to flourish. It's not all bad. There is chaos, there is threat, there is destruction, but the Spirit of God is here and new life is beginning to flourish.